We jump into Rockin Company's Rockin CU family owned and operated in Colorado, 5 decades, 2 generations, historic and modern masons and general contractors. Build it with Rock, build it with Rockin Company, rockandco.com. And we welcome the publisher of the must-read, if you're a CU or a college football fan and basketball fan, buffstampede.com. Adam Munsterteiger. Howdy, Adam.
Good morning, guys.
Morning. You're on with Michael Klahr. Jason Hirsch of the Hirsch Pitching Academy is with me. We're trying to save the Rockies this morning, but let's focus on saving the Colorado Buffs. Big opportunity coming up. Colorado State, national television, unopposed, a game that should garner a huge Labor Day viewing crowd on Friday at 6 p.m. on Friday, September 2nd. But my concern about the Buffs and taking care of this opportunity is they're still scrambling to get enough quarterbacks on this team, and we don't know about the health of Sefo Lufau.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say they're scrambling at this point. We know what their quarterback situation is going to be. It's just a question of whether Sefo Lufau's foot's going to make it all the way through this summer and through camp and have him be 100% going into the season opener. Of course, it looks promising right now. We've talked about that on your show. And I guess the real question is who's going to be the backup between Jordan Gerke, who's a senior but has struggled at times in games in the past and doesn't have that high ceiling that a guy like redshirt freshman Steven Montez does. I think, honestly, if there was an injury to Sefo Lufau, who they went with would be kind of a result of the timing. I think if it happened really early in the season and it was going to be a long-term injury, you'd probably roll with Steven Montez knowing that he would go through some of those growing pains and eventually kind of have a higher ceiling versus if it was a short-term situation, probably you'd see Gerke out there. But, yeah, they're certainly going to need to add some quarterbacks to the roster for next year. Jordan Gerke and Sefo Lufau, both seniors. So after this upcoming season, they're only going to have 2 scholarship quarterbacks on the roster. So Sam Neuer coming in, and then whoever they sign with this 2017 class. And we'll see. They might be in the mix for a transfer next year. But if Steven Montez is showing everything in terms of what the coaches expect him to do in terms of his development,
they really don't want him to
pick.
Yeah, they really don't want to play this year if they can avoid it. But and obviously if Sefo Lufau can play this year, then they do need a quarterback for next year, which could be Montez for 2017. But recently, big news, increasingly we've tracked it this year, and you're the guy at buffstampede.com tracking the recruiting, that Tate Martell, the number 1 ranked dual threat quarterback, has listed his top 6, Ohio State, UCLA, USC, West Virginia, the ever-present nemesis in recruiting for Colorado. It seems like in basketball and football these days is Cal on that list. And Colorado has made the top 6 with some pretty big football names here, part of the new era of stepping up. And why is Tate Martell in the mix now? Why is he considering Colorado?
He's considering Colorado because he sees an opportunity for playing time. And actually, 2 of his teammates, both defensive backs, 4-star Bubba Bolden, a safety, and 4-star cornerback Alex Perry, are really high on Colorado as well. And you see this happen a lot of times with recruiting where a group of guys might want to go together in college, and they look at maybe Colorado as not only an opportunity to play right away, but they'll have the ability to put their fingerprints on this program the way they see it. There's a 4-star defensive tackle out of Vegas by the name of Greg Rogers that's close to those guys that has CU in his top 6. So Colorado hasn't signed a player from Nevada since 2009, and all of a sudden they're in the mix for all these guys from Vegas. Clayton Adams, who did a good job locking up Bo Bisharat, their top-ranked signee from the class of 2016, is responsible for recruiting there in Las Vegas, and he's really gotten them in the mix for some of these guys. If you remember, Tate Martell made some noise about a month ago when he decommitted from Texas A&M.
Exactly.
Because, the receivers coach from Texas A&M then tweeted out some negative comments. It resulted in another decommitment from a 4-star guy and some more backlash there for Texas A&M. So Tate Martell is a guy that I think now that he's back on the market is going to enjoy this process. I don't expect him to make a commitment anytime soon. So if you're Colorado and you've got Tyler Lytle, one of the other quarterback targets, set to make a decision here pretty soon, you would hope to get a commitment from Lytle and then, I guess, keep recruiting Martell from there. You obviously can't put all your eggs in the Tate Martell basket, given that you mentioned some of those other top programs that are in the mix. So if you're a Colorado fan, it'll be kind of fun to chart the recruiting process of Tate Martell, and for Colorado to be in the mix, I just wouldn't necessarily hold your breath.
Yeah, well, it could be tough. Do you think Martell commits before, during, or after his his senior high school season? And what made him decommit from Texas A&M was big news.
Yeah, I think if I had to guess right now, and from everything I'm hearing, is that Tate Martell is going to kind of take his time with the process, and he's somebody that has enjoyed the attention. In terms of him decommitting, I think he realized he had made a decision too early in the process, and there's been some issues with Texas A&M and obviously their quarterback situation here.
Guys leave Texas A&M by the boatload
yeah.
if they're quarterbacks.
Yep. So will be interesting to follow. I think Tate's going to definitely, again, kind of enjoy this process, take all 5 official visits. And, again, you can't just wait for him to make a decision. You got to get a quarterback locked up here. He's only 5'11", but that's literally the only negative thing I've heard about his game. He's out at the Elite 11 finals right now and doing really well through one day out there. Gets back into his delivery as fast as any quarterback in the country, really accurate, and the athletic kid. So obviously if you can get Tate Martell, that would be a program changer for CU.
We'll get back to quarterbacks if we have time. Want to make sure we talk about basketball recruiting. You've been reporting on Buffs at buffstampede.com. Missouri transfer Naaman Wright is in Boulder, was in Boulder for a visit. 6'5", 200-pounder, was a 4-star at a high school, played 2 years at Missouri, put up some numbers. 5.2 rebounds, 9.6. That's pretty good at his size. 9.6 points per game, played 26 minutes a game, high there. How excited are the Buffs about Wright? Is this somebody they want to target?
Yeah, Naaman Wright was somebody they tried to make a play for back when he was a high school recruit, but he wasn't really that receptive to CU's interest back then. Yeah, he was on campus up in Boulder on Wednesday and Thursday, and it sounds like Oregon, which is kind of known as Transfer U, and UNLV are the other schools making a late run at him. I know Tad Boyle said, hey, we'll bank the scholarship if we need to, but if you can get a guy like Naaman Wright who's been about a 10-point scorer in the SEC, they feel like they can get more out of him than the development that he got there at Missouri. Even talking to the Missouri publisher who runs the Missouri site for Rivals, he says, Wright has the ability to be a big-time scorer, and they kind of expected a little bit more out of him. They think a change of scenery might be good for him. He'll have that year where he has to sit out in redshirt and kind of develop a little bit versus coming out of high school, he was kind of thrown right into the mix. But he's got the ability as a scorer. It just wasn't consistently there at Missouri. But this was a top 75 recruit coming out of high school, so there's certainly a lot of potential there. And what Colorado views to be untapped potential at this point.
We've got about 30 seconds here. Tell us what's coming up on buffstampede.com.
Well, camp season is kicking off. Colorado is going to be guest coaching at their first satellite camp on Sunday, so there's always some new prospects, some new names that pop up, and we'll be out covering the Buffs camps up in Boulder this month. So it's a fun time of year to get out there and see these recruits in person.
All right, when we talk next week, Adam, let's get into that quarterback JC transfer thing. Who will be the next kind of veteran transfer like a Jordan Gerke? I like that philosophy of having a backup guy. Thank you, Adam.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Rockin Companies. Rockin CU, family-owned and operated in Colorado, 5 decades, 2 generations. Historic and modern masons, general contractors, built with rock. Build with Rockin Company, rockinco.com. More Ali remembrances and more about saving the Colorado Rockies. Good morning. After we pay tribute to the greatest, the late Muhammad Ali, and tell the story of my first meeting with Ali, we will ask the question this morning, can anything, including the entire Jason Hirsch Pitching Academy, stop the annual Colorado Rockies June swoon? Hello, I'm Michael Klahr, joined this morning on Sports Stampede with you till 10 by the 2007 former Rockies World Series pitcher Jason Hirsch, who is the Jason Hirsch Pitching Academy.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
Great to be here. Great to be here with you. Good to have you sitting in for my former partner, Mark Knudsen, who is off to retirement.
He's on the golf course right now, teeing off at 8 a.m., yeah.
Hard to believe he's not listening to every word we say. It is, I have to say, and I'm a lot older than you are, that Muhammad Ali was the greatest athlete and athlete hero of my lifetime. And it gets to how I look at sports. I look at sports the way people look at great drama, great theater, great movies, as a contrived context that shows the great intangibles that make a great life. And that can be tremendous skill at specific events, but also indomitable courage, strength, grace under pressure. All of those things that make an inspiring story that plays out over a lifetime or over many years wars last year's World War II went on and on from 41 to 45 over 4 years. But we contrive a context that in 2, 3, 4 hours demonstrates some of these things that make life so exciting and so worth living. And I thought Ali, more than anyone in my lifetime, Jason, embodied that.
Yeah, and it was very, very poetic right there. I obviously didn't watch any Ali fights in real time. I wasn't alive during that time, but I remember gathering around the television set every Thanksgiving. I'd go back home, and on television they'd run the greatest Ali fights. The Thrill in Manila and the Rumble in the Jungle, and you name all the great ones against George Frazier and George Foreman, or Joe Frazier, sorry, and George Foreman, and in all. I mean, it was just his character on and off, or in and out of the ring. His interactions with Howard Cosell. I mean, they were. That's the kind of interaction you won't see that again from another athlete, because.
And he was the first.
Right, and he was the first, and he'll be the last, because his bravado out of the ring was matched by his skill in the ring, and we don't see that combination these days.
And I hear people debate, I have friends who will debate who is greater, Jackie Robinson or Ali. Certainly internationally, there's never been anyone, I don't think in any sport, transcendent as Ali was during my lifetime, at least. Who had more influence, Jackie Robinson, changing things dramatically in America, but Ali, an inspiration for so many. But for someone like Ali, basically to have been a public celebrity and done the unthinkable, joining the Black Muslims, a much-hated group, angry group of black men with tremendous appeal to people in prisons, black men in prisons, to have opposed the war publicly, a USA war, after the popular wars that had been fought like World War II, in public, and done that, and whose skill, dignity, incredible courage overcame all of that unpopularity, lack of popularity, to become a beloved part of American culture, overcome his greatest critics, and represent America, like at the Olympics and elsewhere. I mean, that is an incredible thing to happen, and as a kid growing up, I never thought it was possible for someone to be as far out as Ali was, but that's how great his career was, that he overcame that.
Yeah, and he had the great quotes, all the trash talking, that he pretty much invented the idea of trash talking, outside of the ring, and talking down to his opponents and playing that cerebral game. And you talk about, guys that when I was a kid, you always heard float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Like, where did that come from? When I was a kid, I had no idea. Right. But now you look back and say, well, man, he was one of the most quotable athletes of all time.
Absolutely.
One of my favorite quotes from him was, I hated every minute of training, but I knew that if I suffered now, I'd live the rest of my life a champion. And that's something that even today's athletes are inspired by. And so he really was way ahead of his time. And obviously now we'll remember him in memory and name only.
Yeah, and if we have time in this segment, I'll tell my story, because you mentioned training camp, and that's where it took place. The first of several times I met and interacted with Muhammad Ali. But we will tell you that Jason Hirsch and I will talk about the Rocky swoon. We'll talk about the Arenado blow up in the dugout. We'll do our Jason Hirsch Rockies pitching report card. We'll talk about the College World Series on this show. We'll talk about the Major League Draft, which comes in. We'll have Tyler Maughan of minorleaguebaseball.com to talk about the draft at 9:42. We'll do our our Argonaut Wine Liquor games of the week at 9:12 for 2 segments with Bruce Marshall. Go through the NBA and NHL playoffs, the College World Series. Jason has some picks. Major League Baseball. We'll do our picks on all of those starting at 9:12. At 8:42, we have we're going to talk about the Colorado matchup with Colorado State on national TV. A great opportunity for the local teams to shine nationally. And, of course, Colorado's quarterback situation there, much too thin. They need the next great quarterback coming in here, and they're in the top 6 on a highly ranked national player who's been in the news all throughout the recording season. We'll do that with Adam Munsterteiger above Stampede at 8:42 a.m. But just to get this thing started, Jason, right before Ali Frazier 2, I went up with friends to the Deer Lake training camp in Pennsylvania to see Ali. One of my friends, a real Damon Runyon character out of New York, he had turned pro as a boxer at 16, had been a racetrack handicapper and a fight writer for the papers in Miami, and hung around as a boxer and as a newspaper guy, both, with Ali and Dundee in the early days in Miami. And he took us up there, and you go up to the training camp, and it's an incredible scene. It's a classic training camp like out of Gil Whiteweed, like the movie Gentleman Jim, where you've got the rustic log cabins and the woods and the guys chopping wood and all that. And the ring is inside one of these cabins. And you go in there, and Ali is working out, and there's a cross-section of America. And neither Ali nor Frazier were champions at this point. Ali having been stripped, and then Frazier having lost his title to Foreman. And this was their second fight, which was the least interesting of all of them, it turned out. And Ali is in there training, and there's America. I mean, there is Boy Scouts, and there is Bundini Brown and all of his street crowd, his hangers-on. There's the pimps, the whores. Everyone is in there. Every strata of society is following Ali. It's unbelievable. And at the end, everybody shakes his hand. He's dead and limp, and he signs autographs. And then he goes back into the dressing room, and we go in as friends and media. And I had my own boxing magazine then, the Mid-Atlantic Contender. I'm a young punk kid with outrageous, not long hair, I mean outrageous, ridiculous-looking hair, this skinny 23-year-old kid. And we go back there, and Ali starts in. And I learned a valuable lesson that fighters say the most ridiculous things. They tell you what they tell themselves in training, and fighters have to be very unreasonable. Someone says to me when I'm training, okay, you're fighting Roberto Duran next, I got to go, okay, coach, I'll get him. Yeah, right, but you have to be that guy if you box. And so Ali is sitting there and telling us about how Joe Frazier ain't nothing. Meanwhile, Frazier's already beaten him the only time he's ever lost, all right, in the first fight, which was a very close fight, but still, Frazier lost. And we'll wind up finishing this story after we're done. And he starts saying how, now Ken Norton, there's a fighter, and I'm this punk 23-year-old kid with a boxing magazine who knows everything, and I start to lecture Ali on boxing. And he's sitting there stark naked, in front of it. And I wasn't used to being in locker rooms then, right? And the three of us are standing around, us three friends, two us media guys and his buddy, like from Miami. And what happens next turned out that the greatest gave me what might be the greatest moment of my life. It was an unbelievable thing. And we'll pick this up when we come back. Then we are Sports Stampede. Michael Klahr joined by Jason Hirsch of the Jason Hirsch Pitching Academy, talking Rockies and Muhammad Ali this morning till 10, followed by Safe Bet with Marty Selden. Stay with us. And we are back. Sports Stampede. Michael Klahr joined this morning for a couple of hours by Jason Hirsch of the Jason Hirsch Pitching Academy, former Colorado Rockies World Series pitcher in the great year of 2007. And Jason, we're talking about the late, great Muhammad Ali who passed yesterday. And
I can't wait to hear the end of this story. I want to.
In the midst of my story, visiting a training camp, first of several times I met and interacted with Ali, was one of the greatest, gave me maybe one of the greatest moments of my life. He was my all-time hero at that point for having stood up. I admired that, as all young people admire rebels. And as a long-haired rebel myself, it was incredible. Yeah, 23-year-old boxing magazine honcho, a guy who'd never boxed. I boxed later when I came in and moved out here. But I'm sitting there in the dressing room, and he's telling me the most ridiculous things. Joe Frazier ain't nothing. This is before Ali Frazier. He's training for Ali Frazier 2, a fight which he won by decision in just 10 rounds. Neither were champions. And he starts telling me that, now, Ken Norton, there's a fighter. And I immediately go into my boxing analysis. I'm thinking, I can't believe my hero, Ali, is saying this nonsense. Frazier is tough. He comes forward. He puts pressure on you. I didn't want to say he beat you. I was only a little bit smarter than that, to say that. And I said, but Norton, he has his feet wide, his feet are in the bucket. He keeps his right hand crossed on his left cheek. So he picks off the jab, which makes it hard for you to follow because everything for you comes off the jab. You're not a left hooker, et cetera, et cetera. But Frazier punishes. He comes forward. And I'm talking, and Ali starts to get madder. And man, he's looking at this little skinny, long-haired kid, and he jumps up to 6'3" and towers over me, and he starts screaming at me and goes, "I'll show you what I'll do to Joe Frazier." And he starts
in that cadence too. That was what made Ali great, is the cadence of which he delivered his smack talking.
"I'll show you what I'm gonna do to Joe Frazier," and he starts to throw punches at my head a mile a minute as fast as. I couldn't believe. I'd never seen anything like that. I saw the last thing many people saw while they were conscious in the ring. The last thing, and I could feel the wind from his fist. He was within a quarter inch of my face, and the breeze was. And I'm thinking, this is unbelievable. And I'm scared to death, and I'm honored. at the same time,
You were kind of hoping he would punch you just so you could say that Ali gave you a shiner.
yeah, and that's exactly right. And I'm sitting there, I'm going, I can't. My all-time hero, a guy who I never thought I'd meet in my life. I'm awed by famous people. This is before I'd met Jordan and Bird and Magic and a lot of the other greats, legends I've met, but never an experience like this. And my all-time hero, the all-time rebel, Muhammad Ali, is throwing punches at my head, directing all this energy at my head. I can't believe it. And I think to myself, well, maybe I should move into one. Like this would be like getting punched out by Mickey Mantle by the monuments in Yankee Stadium. You remember?
Right.
I don't know if you know the story, but at one point after they clinched a pennant or a World Series, some fan ran on the field and Mantle didn't know what to do with him, so he broke his jaw with a right hand. But
stay off the
of course,
field.
Mantle could have broke it with a left hand. He was a switch hitter,
Right.
But back to boxing. So I'm sitting there, I'm thinking I should move into one and get hit, and I'm thinking, no, then you won't remember anything. Don't.
Right.
You'll be out. Don't do it. And I just couldn't believe it. He went on for a minute. He was so mad at me, this little punk kid telling him about boxing and messing up his training regimen, because that was a major lesson for me. Boxers say ridiculous things because they tell you what they tell themselves. And he's going in to fight a guy he lost to, and he's telling himself, this guy ain't nothing.
Right.
And that was whatever he needed to psych himself up, and I'm rooting it. And this little punk, skinny kid, this young kid with a boxing magazine, the Mid-Atlantic Contender out of Baltimore, and my friends are all going, whoa, easy, Muhammad. But the greatest gave me one of the greatest moments of my life, and he went on to beat Frazier, and he beat him in the third fight, which is some people would say the greatest fight of all time.
So you're saying you had no effect on his training regimen?
He overcame my objections in the locker room, and it was a lot more pleasant than the time that I tried to interview Barry Bonds and made Bonds mad, and Will Clark got the whole San Francisco Giants locker room to laugh at me, and I had to laugh too, because I was even trying to talk to Bonds. I mean, What a jerk.
Yeah, that was a different era, I guess, with Barry and what he was going through. So it doesn't surprise me that you got the cold shoulder from him, and then obviously his teammates stepping up to cover his back when the punk hair kid decided to come up and question the great Barry Bonds.
The great Barry Bonds. I was very lucky. I had to try to set up an interview for a national series I was doing called My Greatest Game. I was working with the guy who produced the Major League Baseball Game of the Week for Mutual, whatever. And Bonds had been thrown out against the Rockies. And so he wasn't going to talk to anybody. And I said, okay, just listen. I just want you to listen. I'm going to come back. I want to do something with you and your dad, Bobby, who's the hitting coach for the Giants. And I want to do My Greatest Game. I'll come back tomorrow. I understand it's a bad. And Bonds starts looking at me and coming at me like, how dare you even talk to me? I'm not going to listen. Like you can't say anything out loud because he might hear it.
Right.
It's like, really that sensitive? You're a little preppy anyway.
Well,
you're not a tough kid.
He's hot. He just got tossed out of a ball game. What do you expect?
Well, that's exactly it. But I had
thought
no
he
choice.
was wronged, and somebody took the fate of his game into their hands.
That's right. But I had no choice. I had to ask him then, or I wouldn't get to ask him.
That's part of the job of being a journalist, right?
That's it. Get thrown out of the locker room.
Yeah. Probably not the last one you got thrown out of.
I've been thrown out of better locker rooms.
There you go. And almost punched by Ali.
Yes, almost.
You should have brought that up with Barry. Like, listen, dude, I talked to Muhammad Ali, and he almost punched me in the face, so you're nothing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just put the bat down.
Right. Yeah.
When you do it.
Exactly.
So, meanwhile, last night, Nolan Arenado, I think, really embodied my feelings and many of us. And I talk because I say this on here. I'm a season ticket holder. I'm not just a baseball fan. I have Rocky season ticket. The frustration boiled over about this team squandering a great Major League Baseball start, and Arenado in the first inning in the dugout yelling and screaming. No one is going to say exactly what he said, but we have some clues.
All right. Yeah, you can't repeat what he said, not on terrestrial radio at least. But yeah, the frustration did boil over. The Rockies have not had great success in San Diego or against San Diego over the last 2 years. It's just, for whatever reason, San Diego has their number, no matter how good or bad that they've been over the last couple of years. And so, you see last night, Chris Rustin throws the ball into dead center field on a ball that it should have been a tailor-made double play, and stuff that, that we as pitchers work on every spring training.
Yep. We're
taught to throw to the bag in that situation. He tried to hit Trevor Story on the run, which is not what you're supposed to do. Throws the ball under center field and extends the inning. And then Matt Kemp comes up, first pitch. He throws him a letter-high fastball, and Matt Kemp hits I think it's tied for the longest home run in Petco Park history. And after the inning, Nolan comes in there, and the optics were bad. They were really bad. Nolan comes in, he's dropping F-bombs, and what I could make out was the word fastball and then the other word that we're not allowed to repeat on the air.
other F word.
The other F word, correct.
Fastball.
And then there were a lot of those two words used, and it looked, like I said, the optics were bad. It looked like Nolan was yelling at Nick Hundley about the pitch call. Why are you throwing fastballs to a guy in Matt Kemp who is a Rockies killer and has been over the last his career, basically.
Yeah.
Even when he was with the Dodgers, he destroyed the Rockies. Now he's just 2 hours south of L.A., and he's still crushing the Rockies.
His career has gone south, and he still kills the
Rockies. Where's the rim shot? But so, the frustration, Nolan said last week, he's tired of losing. I get it. This is something that we didn't see Tulo do, as the alleged leader of the Colorado Rockies. Now you see Nolan getting hot, showing emotion, doing it in the dugout. And if you see the clip, Walt comes over and he's watching the situation unfold. And Nick Hundley's sitting there and he's nodding his head. And, after the game, they all answered the questions and they all said that, Nolan wasn't yelling at one person in particular. He was just venting his frustrations towards the team. And this might be something that lights a fire under the butt. We've talked about the Rockies getting aggressive in June, the June swoon that they've seemed to have over the last couple of years, where maybe they have a good start to the year and then in June they tank. And so this might be the match that starts the fire for the Rockies in getting them motivated and letting them understand that, hey, if Nolan's not going to put up with this, neither should I. And you saw what Chris Russin did after he got, allegedly blown up at. He went out there and gave them 6 solid innings and gave them a chance to win the ball game. And really the difference in that ball game was one pitch. It was the elevated fastball. And it's happened a couple other times this year for the Rockies where the difference in the game has been one bad pitch.
Yeah.
So this is something that...
And that's something you get when you have young pitchers.
Yeah, and it's also something that you get in the major league level, right? You're only allowed to make one mistake, if that.
Good point.
And it could cost you a ball game. So something that will hopefully carry on to a more positive outlook for the Rockies moving forward.
Well, I'm going to pick them today on our Argonaut Wine and Liquor Games of the Week. I'm Michael Klahr.
You homer, you.
Yeah, that's it. You can't make a living betting and picking the Colorado Rockies to win.
You're going to try, though.
I'm going to go with them today, though. I think today is a bounce-back game. And it is puzzling how they can beat the pants off of the Giants sometimes, especially in San Francisco, and not match up at all with the Padres. And usually it's a Padres finesse pitcher, not a fastball pitcher, who gets them. And, of course, last night was a knuckle curve, and maybe we'll talk about Drew Pomeranz, the knuckle curve that seems to have saved his career, allowing him to realize his potential.